The way that this system is set up is so traumatic and traumatizing to black families that
Hey guys, it's the Royals family and we're back like we never left. You know what time it is. Like, share, subscribe, take off. So today, we are finally dropping another video. Today's video is about DHS, DGS, and DCHA, the meeting we just had with them and what happened at the meeting. All of that footage is in today's video. A lot of you all know that on September the 12th, myself and community leader Tiff Aziz led and organized a protest at Laura Zeilinger's house. Laura Zeilinger is the director of DHS. This protest was held on behalf of homeless families in the district who are struggling, and also on behalf of families in rapid rehousing. So anyway, as a result of this protest, Laura Zeilinger came and asked me to meet with her. So today we had that meeting. I invited some ANC commissioners. Black Lives Matter was there. DC Housing Authority was there. DGS was there. Now, when you watch the video, you're going to see that you can see my face, you can see the ANC commissioners, and you can see Black Lives Matter, but you can't necessarily see DHS and DCHA and all of these other people. I did not show them on camera, but you can hear their responses. So anyway, I know y'all don't want to hear me talk forever. Let's get right into this video. So I wrote my statement just because I wanted to make sure I was organized, and I'm sorry for not having it typed up. I came here from class, so everything has been crazy today. So I'm going to be reading from what I wrote. In February and July of this year, I conducted 2 online surveys which were set up in the form of a voting poll on social media. The purpose of these surveys was to identify and establish some of the most high-rating programs families face. When asked how many families had gone through the rapid rehousing program more than once in a 5-year period, 10 families responded that they had only gone through the rapid rehousing program once, while 297 families checked the box indicating that they had gone through rapid rehousing at least twice in a 5-year period. When asked if they'd experienced any water leaks, mold, or mildew in their units during their time in rapid rehousing, 15 families indicated that they had not, while 483 families checked the box indicating that they had. So I'm not going to read all of this. 18 families indicated that they received shelter placement on their first visit to Virginia Williams, while 149 families checked the box indicating that they had to go to Virginia Williams more than once to receive help. 40 families said that they exited rapid rehousing with a permanent voucher, while 225 families said that they exited and they became homeless. Additionally, 347 rapid rehousing families indicated experiencing severe maintenance repair issues within the first 45 days of moving into their unit. The conclusion of this survey indicated that repeated cycles in rapid rehousing, poor case management, access to emergency shelter, access to employment services, maintenance and repair issues were the highest ranking issues, and securing permanent housing after rapid rehousing ended. So I just want to show these real quick. I didn't have time to make copies, but especially since I have DCHA here, this is the home of a family under DCHA. This is her ceiling. Her ceiling fell down on her 10-year-old daughter. This is a family in rapid rehousing. I don't know if you could really tell what this is, but this is a huge rat you might want to pass that around because I don't know how well people can see that. And then I have another one, another rapid rehousing family. She has mold all in her unit. Now, I have a bunch of these pictures. I've seen a bunch, but I only wanted to print out a few for the purpose of this meeting. Clearly, based off of those pictures and based off of what I've seen as an advocate, I know that there's a serious issue, especially when it comes to inspections and how inspections are done. I'm aware that DCHA does inspections before a resident moves into rapid rehousing. But what I'm proposing, because I know we were asked to also bring solutions and not just complain. So what I'm proposing is that in addition to the pre-existing post-lease-up inspections, I'm asking that DHS implement a policy mandating a follow-up inspection for rapid rehousing clients and voucher holders within 30 to 45 days after move-in. So I'm basically asking for 2 inspections. The first one that happens and then another follow-up inspection within 30 to 45 days. Because the issue is it's easy for a lot of these landlords to throw paint over things and to make it look like, you know, it's fine. And then within the first couple of weeks, I'm having to jump up out of my bed at 3, 4 in the morning because a family is having a leak. Like I had to in Ward 8 when I had to wake Councilmember White up out of his sleep at 3 in the morning to come and help me because we had a mother in rapid rehousing whose unit was flooded. So this is what I'm proposing for lease-ups. Additionally, I am proposing that if any severe maintenance issues are identified during the second follow-up inspection, that DCRA is notified immediately and an emergency DCRA inspection request is submitted, and that a DHS representative is sent out within 24 hours to follow up with the family, provide supportive services, and assess whether or not it is safe for the family to remain in the unit while they wait for the DCRA inspection. While I thank the Director of Virginia Williams for her consistent support and compassion, the fact remains that every day I receive a high amount of complaints regarding the Virginia Williams Family Resource Center and the disrespect and mistreatment from staff and the wrongful and unfair denials after shelter. As a result, I am proposing that DHS and the Director of Virginia Williams hire an ombudsman who is on site at Virginia Williams and who can immediately work to address and resolve client complaints.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to let the group know that DCHA is here. Can I let you introduce yourself and I'm thinking you can here.
Okay. Hi, Tamara Gabriel with DCHA.
Nice to meet you.
Sit here and take notes.
I'm trying to find where I left off. I'm sorry.
Ombudsman.
Okay, the shelter placement process needs to change also, especially regarding Virginia Williams. I know that you all have the IEP, but a lot of times that is not used. And I'm asking that I think it's already mandatory for families during this pandemic, but I'm asking that it be mandatory during the pandemic and at least for 6 months after. And I'm also asking that you all extend the IEP. Because I think right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's either 3 or 7 days the families have to bring in the documents. 12 days. Can you all extend that to 15?
Yes.
So in the public health emergency, we have more than 12 days.
Okay.
So
60 days during
60 days. Okay. What about after? There's no plans for. What's the typical time? Like if there wasn't a pandemic going on, what would be?
So if there's no pandemic, we resolve within 12 days. If we couldn't get any information after 12 days, they will become eligible by default.
Okay.
But during public health emergency, we understand it's not easy to get documentation as much as you would otherwise. So we have up to 60 days for the family to stay as IEP and to provide documentation and finish the eligibility process.
Okay.
So right now we don't have any cases that would take even 60 days. But I think understandably, if families need more, it's not asking to ask for extension.
Okay. Okay. Lost my spot again, but I'm also requesting that DHS and the Director of Virginia Williams mandate policy that allows families who have been denied shelter the right to speak with the supervisor immediately. I'm proposing that DHS transfer and relocate families in crisis within 24 to 72 hours from the time the emergency transfer or relocation request was granted. I am proposing that DHS send emergency personnel to shelter. I am proposing that DGS send emergency personnel to shelters, short-term housing sites within 2 hours of receiving a request for emergency services. In conclusion, I am requesting that DCHA reopen the Section 8 voucher list and that DCHA form partnerships with housing navigators, if they already haven't, so that families can receive help in locating Section 8 approved landlords, and so families won't have to continue to sit on DCHA housing lists for 10 to 15 years before finally receiving a voucher. I'm requesting that DHS and DCHA move away from promoting affordable housing that really isn't affordable and instead place emphasis on creating income-based subsidized housing for low-income residents and seniors. I'm requesting that both DHS and DCRA discontinue housing low-income residents in red light areas of the city that are known for violence, and that instead DHS and DCRA move to build partnerships with landlords and to build more subsidized housing outside of red light areas, so the low-income residents and seniors and those who were formerly homeless are afforded the same opportunities as residents in wards 1, 2, and 3. Last but not least, I'm asking for a Zoom call town hall meeting at least every 60 days. Director Zeilinger, I would like you, Mr. Abraham, Ms. Williams, more than likely Mr. Handerhan, to possibly think about setting up like Zoom call meetings. I know that in 2018 we had that thing that was like a town hall meeting where we had a lot of families come in. But I would like for you all to set this up and do this at least once every 60 days so you all can hear directly from the families. And I was thinking along the lines of something like how DC Council, how they do their Zoom calls and they allow people to come in and share testimony. Because it's one thing for the advocates and the ANC commissioners to bring you the people's concerns, but it's something totally different to hear it directly from the families. My biggest issue with DHS is that a lot of times when I bring you concerns and issues, you all either try to minimize the situation or you try to act like it's an isolated incident. And I know as an advocate who's worked with hundreds of families, I'm in the field all the time with families, I know that these are not isolated incidents. People shouldn't have to live with ceilings falling down on their head. People shouldn't have to live with flooding. People shouldn't have to live with mice and rats, and these are things that we are seeing repeatedly. So we got to figure out a way to address this. And I think it's important for families to be able to tell their story. I think a lot of families feel like you all honestly don't care what they have to say. And so I think having these Zoom calls opens a door for communication between you all and the families that you serve. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have anything you want to ask?
Ladies first, I'm definitely going to go last because
I think one of the problems with families coming forward is that with who you guys partners are, they get threatened in a sense about speaking out. They get threatened about losing their place to stay, especially in the hotels. So when they dealing with the hotel staff and something is going wrong there and they want to address it and they start speaking out about it, they get threatened. You know, like, we'll just tell them that you're X, Y, and Z, and then you just won't have a place to stay. And it makes them too afraid to come forward and say what's going on. So they reach out to us and want to share what's going on, and they want us to, you know, act on their behalf. So we're trying to get them, you know, to start coming forward. But they're very frightened. You know, they have children. They're trying to get their lives together the best way that they can. They're in these situations, and then they get these threats about speaking out and what will happen to them if they do. And that's a continuous thing that goes on. Like, every time someone contacts me from one of these hotels or something, one of the things that they say first is like, I went to the staff, I told them this, and then when I mention I'm going to report it to my case manager or whoever, they start getting the threats, which make them back off and just deal with it because they need a place to stay. That's one of the things. Another one of the things is...
Do you mind if I ask you a clarifying question
Uh-huh.
about that? So, we don't have families in overflow shelter and motels anymore.
Uh-huh.
Do you hear the same kinds of complaints from other programs outside of when we had DCP at DC General and the motels?
Well,
do you hear it from other shelters, other short-term family housing programs, or was that mostly when we had the hotels on New York Avenue?
that was mostly when you had the hotels on New York Avenue. Those types of threats. Another thing is I need clarification on this. Is Wheeler, what's the name of that place?
Willa Creek.
Is Willa Creek a partner of you guys? Okay.
Yes.
Because we have so many complaints in regards to Willa Creek. I have a guy now, his name is Alusain Davies. Now he said that he's been waiting on a place to move in, and he was assigned to Willa Creek, and he found out that there's an apartment in his name and someone else has been living in it for a year.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's one of my issues.
And I'll definitely email you his contact information so that you guys can talk directly to him. But he has been going back and forth. Jules Stroman and myself, we went there. They are not approachable at all when we went. And they like cover up a lot, you know. So he said, I don't know exactly how he found this out, but he says that he has an apartment that is in his name. That apartment has been in his name for over a year, and he has not been living in it. Someone else is living in an apartment that's in his name, and it's through Willa Creek.
Yeah, that's the...
That's
Wow.
very, man. I'm not just going to add on to her. I'm ANC Commissioner Christopher Hawthorne. That's my single member district. But if you have any business dealing with Willa Creek, please cut it off now, because it's starting to become a pond where people who are sitting there on a waiting list have been waiting for years and years and years, and they're picking and choosing who they want to put in there. And these people are not necessarily dealing with issues of homelessness. They're picking and choosing people that they want to be there. And until you guys, because I can set up a meeting with the people who live on that property right now, and you guys right now without them, and they're going to tell you exactly what's going on with Willa Creek. Ever since Bessie Swan has touched this thing, it has been a total tragedy. You guys are being fooled out of your money, and you need to stop and cut it off right now. Whomever the person that is on that board, because you have a board person for DC Housing Authority, they are absolutely lying to you, and they don't even want to meet with me nor any of the residents who want to meet with them face to face, because the residents are getting tired of the people that they're putting there, because they have become nuisances. They have become community nuisances in which the community is starting to revert back to what it was, and it was Valley Green before it became what it is now today. So can you please just cut off the funds to anything dealing with Willa Creek, or any subsidies that's going to that the little condo in which people are living in. That's I believe that's that came through I can't remember the guy's name, if he's still here or not. Theo Rogers. It is a problem, and if you want to know what kind of problems it is, I'm talking about drug dealing and prostitution. That's what I'm talking about.
And I just want to interject really quick that a couple of families that were housed under Willa Creek Collaborative told me, and I know everybody can't be lying, that they were told by staff at Willa Creek that they had to have a job in order to qualify for rapid rehousing.
Yes.
And these are families who went through Virginia Williams, and Virginia Williams referred them for HPAP or HAP, whatever it's called, referred them to Willa Creek, and then they come there for help. And they're being told by case managers there, if you don't have a job, you don't qualify for rapid rehousing. And I'm like, that's a lie. Who's telling y'all this? So it's almost like they just don't want to help people. That's the problem.
And one of the gentlemen who was told that, his name is Robert Yales. Gayles, and I'll get his information too. Because we went to Willow Creek and was trying to talk to the director there, try to speak with his case manager, and we had Robert Gales with us, and Robert Gales was like, I would like them to attend the meeting with me, and they said, no, you can't have anyone attend the meeting with you.
What is happening is they're being protected by the CDC, who runs Willow Creek. The CDC is actually running all of the groups. In fact, they are the same people that are on. They're serving 3 boards. If you send a board there for to deal with the issues involving homelessness, they're the same people. If they're the same people who deal with the homeowners, in which none of the homeowners now want to even pay a home ownership fee, those are the same people. They're taking the money right now. I have called Racine trying to get an audit on them because they will not even put up a treasury report. We've had people voted on that board. They've been moving the board, and so we've had to go to DCRA to find out, to how we dissolve the CDC. And we've been going back and forth. We've been going back and forth with them. There are 2 or 3 houses that have been empty for almost 3 years, in which the raccoons have now started living there, because they want to pick and choose who they want to put there. You have properties that is available, but they're picking and choosing who's going to go on that property, and it ain't the list that you guys have given to them. And you guys are giving them money every year. You're sending a lot of money to them. And it's not reaching the residents. And this is the reason why residents feel the way they feel about these agencies, because until you get somebody that's going to hold them accountable or take responsibility for it, we haven't seen it.
That's right.
Up until now, outside of the last meeting that we've had with Mr. Abraham and Mr. Vasco, we haven't seen a face that we can put to it. All we've seen is their agents, and their agents are very disrespectful because they know that they have a hookup in the district government, and they're going to continuously get this money from you all. So I'm asking for the record, please cut them off. If they want to ask why, tell them ANC Commissioner Chris Hawthorne asked for it to happen. It is needed because the people that it's intended for, it's not reaching.
Can I add clarification question? Is that what you're asking?
There may be a couple of layers to the Wheeler Creek.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they're the same people. That's what I was just saying.
They are the same people, but I think there are different programs, and we want to get some clarification.
We can go through that.
Okay.
So.
Because I know I've actually been to a meeting a few years ago.
I remember you.
I know, exactly. I remember you too. And so the governance and because it's a Hope 6 project. I'm sorry.
Correct.
I can see you.
With the 90, you talking about with the 90-year lease, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a ground lease. So Wheeler Creek is a Hope 6. It's one of our Hope 6 redevelopments where there's a mix of homeownership, rental, there's a senior building, and so there's a long-term relationship that the DCHA has with that property. And Theo Rogers is an A&R development that was our development partner in the beginning. I think there's been an ownership change, and so I think I'll circle back with my team to find out what the status is, who our representative is in DCHA that's doing asset management, so that we can make sure compliance-wise that we're addressing any issues. And then I think then it sounds like there's a separate.
Yes. I wanted to add to that. Well, if you can remember from that meeting, I asked for them to be investigated a long time ago because they were doing things that weren't in the best interest of those people.
It actually sounds like that's a good segue into our next segment, Next Steps, Hammer. So since you already started, we'll let this dialogue continue, but we'll look at it in the framing under Next Steps. Since she already started, she's going to go back and do some research and circle back to the group on that. So that kicks off the next part, and Hammer, we'll go ahead and start with DCHA, okay? Okay. So I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead with your question.
If you can remember back when we had that meeting, I was asking for an investigation then because there was some improprieties that was going on involving the people that was being sent there versus the people that were actually being placed. And they weren't too upfront with us then. And at one point in time, they started closing off all of their public meetings that they were supposed to have with the public so that we could ask them questions. They haven't had a public meeting since the last time me and you left that meeting. And that's how bad it has gotten. All of their meetings have been closed.
Honey.
And
Can I-
Mrs.
can I
Stroman,
ask
you had
one
some. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So on Wheeler Creek, we also have different programs.
Mm-hmm.
We have the homelessness prevention program.
Yeah,
We
that's
raised
the
that
one I was
concern
talking
in the
about.
past about families need to have a job to qualify for rapid rehousing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not accurate, but
Exactly.
it's preferable because if they have employment now, it would be easier to sustain the unit after the program subsidy ended. But it's not a requirement, and we clarified that, but we can do that again.
And that
But-
came directly from their director.
I remember. I remember that.
But they're
He sent it
still
to me.
doing it.
Yes.
They still doing it.
And then we also have two different programs with Wheeler Creek. On the individual side, we have a PSH program
Mm-hmm.
and we have a rapid rehousing program. So, as always, I think it would help us the same way Commissioner Lamerme stated. If we have specific information about the client,
Mm-hmm.
we would be able to address it on the client level or family level.
Yes.
But at the same time, at policy level, we'll also go back and revisit, so they know that that's not a requirement, and we all would be on the same.
He's talking about where the renters are.
And what is PSH for?
Permanent supportive housing voucher.
Permanent and permanent. Okay.
And I had one more thing. TCP, that was a part of our demands, I believe. I don't have the letter right in front of me. TCP, we want you all to cut your ties with TCP. I remember at the Days Inn Motel, there was a staff member there, Mr. Outlaw, who was fired because of his criminal background, because he had felony convictions. And one of the families that was locked up with him came to the hotel just from being homeless and was like, oh, I recognize him. I was locked up with him. And we also heard that he was a pedophile and he was trying to solicit the women for sexual favors. He was saying, I can get you out of here, I can get you into housing if you do A, B, C, D, and E. And I know that he was eventually fired, but this is the kind of foolishness and nonsense that goes on under TCP. I've also gotten complaints from residents regarding the security.
Security where?
Whatever security you all are using, whatever company you're using, I know when I was at the Days Inn, what I witnessed was them outside drinking with red cups. They do this every night. We don't know what's in those cups, but the security officers who are hired by, I guess, DHS or contracted or whatever, they like to stand outside and drink. They have relationships with the residents, but the most serious complaint that I got about security is that they were allegedly pulled a gun on someone to intimidate them, and allegedly this happened at the Days Inn. And I know that the Days Inn has since closed down and you all are no longer affiliated with them, but what I'm saying is TCP has been a problem for years. I can remember when my 11-year-old was 1 year old and I was put out of a transitional housing program and had to take them to court. This was, and the same things are still happening today. I was given a 2-hour notice to vacate. I was put out in the rain. My daughter caught pneumonia. I spent 5 days in the hospital with her, and the same stuff is going on today that was going on back when she was 1, and she's 11 now. We have been complaining. I know I've been complaining about TCP forever, and it's like you all are not hearing us. You all need to cut your ties with these people. These people, they are not here to help families. They're not here to help families, and that was a big demand of ours, and that was a big reason why we came to your door and protested. Because we feel like we keep telling you all these are the things that's going on, and no one is listening. Everyone is saying we're listening, but no one is doing anything about these issues. So I would like to see some kind of investigation initiated on TCP, and I would not like to see it headed by DHS. I would like to see an outside agency perform some kind of investigation. I have a lot of complaints that families have written me that I'd be more than happy to overturn to whoever this agency is, but I would love for you all to initiate an open investigation, especially about the concerns and the allegations I've heard about Mr. Outlaw. Even though he was fired, that's still a concern for me.
Sure. So I want to, I'm going to, when Dora tells me it's time to sort of say, time to recap, so I'd like to be able to tell you the things I've heard. I really do want you to know that I'm listening and I've heard you. But on the specific point about an investigation, and particularly things like this that are criminal, like staff who are coercing residents, pulling guns on people, what you said about Mr. Outlaw, that is a matter that and also independent investigation would go to the Inspector General. So I really encourage you to share all of it with the Office of Inspector General, because they're an independent body that's exactly set up for things. I agree with you wholeheartedly, would not be the appropriate for DHS to investigate itself in that way, and particularly around criminal matters. So anything like that, I really would encourage your sharing with the Inspector General, and then they will ask us for information that they might need for their investigation, but it will be independent from us.
And how much is your contract with? Can you all share that information, or is that confidential with TCP?
May I just interrupt you, Ms. Strong? I'm just trying to keep a flow to the conversation, and you mentioned a lot of stuff about inspections earlier. So we had started with DCHA. Can I kick you back that way? And then we'll go to DGS, and then we'll do DHS last. Is that okay with you? All right, so like I introduced her, Ms. Hamra over there is our DCHA rep. Like I said in the beginning of the conversation, you had some concerns about inspections. So I just want her to be able to make sure she hears you and can go back with your concerns. So can we go back there?
Can somebody pass out the pictures? Yeah, the pictures. Can you pass?
And also,
Absolutely.
while you're doing
Here's
that,
another one.
can I elaborate on the inspection part, because it's getting quite pathetic to the point. It's getting quite pathetic to the point where I don't feel the need that I should be woken out of my bed 3 and 4 times for the same issue to occur again and again after a work order has been said that the work has been completed. If these type of things are happening, in which we have some inhabitable conditions, in which we have feces coming through the tubs and coming through the faucets, and then you have mold coming through the walls because the pipes are leaking, and we have water damage coming through electrical sockets and stuff like that. This is all life-threatening issues. I'm not just talking about mice running through an apartment, but those things can lead to mice running through an apartment, because anytime water leaks, it attracts a number of vectors. My issue is with DGS, because they're here. When I start seeing work orders, when I ask, what has been prepared and what has been done and everything else, and all I see is these patch and glue performances that I'm seeing.
Can I stop you? I'm sorry. Can we stay with DCHA and move to DGS, please?
Both of them going to eventually have to address it, because it's both of their issues. So they can speak to the inspection part.
The issue was inspection first, and then, like I said.
Well, with regard to inspection, I would like to know, on an average basis, how do you conduct inspections? Are they yearly? Are they monthly? And when you hear about a problem, how often do you do them after that? And to the extent, what is a full inspection? Because if you're just inspecting one thing, then that's one of our problems.
Can you all email him the inspection checklist too? Because I think I had it, but I don't have it with me.
DCHA question should be directed to Ms. Hamra.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that was DCHA. But I know they have a checklist. They can send it to you.
So DCHA,
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
So we conduct inspections on behalf of DHS for the rapid rehousing program. And so we do initial inspections and then any complaint inspections that are requested. So that's the arrangement we have on rapid rehousing.
Were you able to hear her?
I heard a little bit of it.
She said that they do initial inspection and they do inspections upon complaint when they receive a
And he
complaint.
asked how soon after a complaint.
I did ask how soon after a complaint.
Hey, Noah, do you want to switch with Hamra during this section?
She can just slide up though. She got a whole little part over here right
Because I
there.
have my laptop.
Oh, okay, I understand. My bad.
Trying to take notes and
I get you.
just to make
Let
sure
me
I
do
kept
this.
everything.
So I think I can answer that question. So there are 2 types. One is emergency inspection, say flooding or anything that would compromise the safety of someone immediately. Then that inspection would be done within 24 to 48 hours.
That's not what we've been seeing at all. At all. At all.
There are few factors that come into play when we actually schedule those inspections. One is availability of the landlord and the family to be at the site when the inspection is scheduled, and the availability of the inspector to be at the unit by the time the landlord tells them to be there. So there are some logistics that go into it, but our requirement is for inspections to happen between 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, so I'm gonna be specific with you. With regard to property that would have iron galvanized lines, who is inspecting the plumbing to these units that supply water supply? Because my issue with that is, with iron galvanized line and the age of the pipe, most likely there can be a problem with lead infections, and that's the part I wanted to ask. As a part, can we add that, if it's not in there, to do a lead test on some of these properties that would have iron galvanized lines? Because if the age of the property is going over 100 years old, or probably even closer, like to 80 years old, then we need to start really looking at each and every last one of the utilities, because the utilities have already needed to be updated a long time ago. And so that's part of the inspection that I would like to see happen, because those are the first things that go wrong in the houses, in the homes, that turn that once upon a time dream home into an inhabitable home.
Right. And I don't know if you guys even know this, but Congress Park, the residents at Congress Park, they went without water for 5 days. They were literally in the street.
No, they went out for water without 2 months. It happened in
for
June.
2 months. They were
2
in the
months.
street with an open fire hydrant,
Taking baths
outside. Recently, this was recent.
Yeah, it's on the news. I went there and had DC Water and Sewer Authority to cut the water off because.
And we start, engaging our sister agency on what's the best course of action, not to, again, create impact to the families that stand in some of those spaces. I will say that we've been constantly improving the ticket order relationship to make sure things that are not duplicated, and our system have gotten better. So if it's specifics or a specific location, then typically they go to the area manager, and we have 3 that usually work inside of that space, and they will come and prioritize. I really need to get this issue taken care of. It's beyond the 45-day window. Here's the cause and effect of it. That's one check block. The other one is our sister agency. When we meet with them, they'll tell us, here's our priority out of all of the priorities that have to get done, and then we lift and shift our resources to get it done. So I know there's probably still issues out there, but my team has been responsive. We made a lot of streamlining communications to get the stuff done. And I know the roll-arc may be one of the conversations, and I know we had a lot of challenges with that site. So I'm going to segue into it before we have that discussion. So again, there were some challenges. We received it from construction. It caused a lot of problems, a lot of structural issues. We were trying to get the ones that were not displaced families and open up some of those locations, but we got to the end of the fiscal year for that operating budget. So we presented a plan for the roll-out to address all of those issues that were structurally related to approach the first quarter. We presented the plan to our sister agency to get buy-in, because in order to replace, for example, the floors, it's going to displace families. We already know there's a sensitive issue, and we want to make sure we engage our sister agency to do it right, strategically, opposed to disenfranchising the family. So that's the issue as far as tickets. We vet them. Sometimes the same ticket comes in and make it kicked out, but we have been actively resolving tickets, and the number, I don't have any statistics for you right now, but the number of open issues that are, say, a life-threatening issue or a water issue, we know what they are, and a part of them is related to a major construction overhaul that's going to displace, and we kind of work with the sister agency not to say, here's where we can do it, and we know there's going to have other implications. So
when you say life-threatening, did you mean life-threatening issues? I don't think we...
Life safety kind of issues. So like you mentioned, electrical issues,
Water coming out of the electric
outlets,
socket.
mold, those kind of things. They take a different level of response, and any fire life safety issue, we remediate as an emergency.
Okay, quick question, because I didn't want to I didn't want to cut you off or anything like that, but you know, for the people that don't understand, can you tell me with your work orders? Can you describe what a standard work order or repair looks like versus one that would constitute an emergency? And by all means, you know, just give me a good definition of it.
So an emergency would be, again, anything that could create harm to a family. Flooding has implications. So anything, a pipe burst, that would create a second order effect. Mold would result in that. Heating and air conditioning, again, depending on the season, that will become an emergency. Something that's a standard, typically our on-site personnel take care of would be the light is out. But if the light is out in an area that creates risk or could potentially put it in a threatening manner because of visibility issues, that could be classified as an emergency, or it could be a standard repair.
I'm sorry, you keep saying sister agency. Who can
I'm
you?
talking about
DHS.
DHS.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Now, with these work orders, for the different categories, do they have like an ETA for a time of completion?
They do. And
can you tell me what range for each one?
Our standard response is 45 days on a standard work order.
Jesus Christ!
Wow, yeah.
Go ahead with the emergency.
Yeah, the emergencies are 4 hours. We have to respond to abate the issue. Once we take it out of a threatening manner, then it can, depending on what it is, fall into our regular standard service agreement.
If they don't respond within 24 hours within emergency, like when you have on-site maintenance people, what is the protocol for that? Meaning that, like, when they're on-site maintenance, don't do what they're supposed to do.
She went into my caress.
What is the protocol behind that? Because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on.
So
that's not my lane, but I mean, we have DC Mutual Aid DC, and we have nothing but housing issues in our mutual aid group.
Hello.
Nothing but housing issues in my mutual aid group.
Introducing yourself to the group, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Nene, co-organizer with Black Lives Matter DC. Sorry about that. I was late.
You good?
I was missing. I misread where the
all the
location
facilities,
was.
and I'm not certain on which ones that may be addressed, but our response is to all of them. Right. So if there are emergencies like that, typically we have on-site liaisons that reach out to our area managers to report something that is habitually being overlooked that's an emergency. So, and again, by the time it gets to my level, then that means that it's gotten serious, and some of those things may not have reached me because I'm not familiar.
So, can I have your information before you leave?
I just want to clarify, when he says 45 days for a standard, it's contingent upon resources, manpower, weather, or communicating with our partner agency, which is DHS. So all of that conversation comes into play in prioritizing what gets done and when it gets done.
I have a question.
Can you also share? I understand that there's a process that DGS has that people can
Yes.
reach out.
So
Can you share
if
that?
you guys, so you can report it to staff on site, and they can get the information to us. If you guys want to report it yourselves, you guys can go to the DGS website, which is dgs.dc.gov, and there is a facilities maintenance tab, and you can hit that tab. Once you hit that tab, you're gonna have to insert some information: your name, your number, your email address, a brief synopsis of what is happening. Once you hit submit, it's going to go to our first team, and their main job is to submit requests into our Salesforce system. They are going to reach out to you because with our system, it requires a photo to make sure that the request is submitted so that we are clear on exactly what your concern is.
Commissioner Whitman?
Okay, so winter is fast approaching. Has the issues with the rollards been addressed with the heat?
They gonna say yeah.
Because the last time it was an emergency situation, we were out there till like 7 in the morning, calling people trying to get this addressed, and they had no heat. We were told it was going to start getting taken care of right away. Well, long story short, that went on for a little over a month. So is that taken care of?
No,
now
they had
with
no
the
heat
rollards?
for 4 months.
It was
For
4
4
months?
months in the winter, they had no heat.
And we were lockstep with that issue, but that was a balancing system issue, and we did get that squared away.
So it is okay now.
That is correct.
Okay.
So I want to just bring us back a little bit because we could end up spending a lot of time talking about a lot of going deep into the processes. I'm not trying to cut you off, sir. Is the sun glaring?
No, I wanted to stay right here because that's an important issue. And the reason why I wanted to stay right there is because that building caught on fire twice. And so I wanted to know, is it fully taken care of? Because I don't want to go back past it, and then next thing you know, we're coming up on December, and I'm hearing the same thing again. Because that's one of my problems. To hear it repetitively said to me from someone from your staff and from DGS staff to say that the issue has been handled. I get an email, and then the next day, I'm back out there at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and now I'm pissed because I've already gotten 3 answers from 3 different agencies who told me that things were fixed and taken care of, and then you have people fussing at me because I took your word for it.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you to just one more time address if there's any outstanding issues related to the heat as we're getting into a colder season.
Correct.
And then, so if you want to address that fully, and then I'm going to try to come back.
And then we'll
make
move to
a
DHS.
suggestion. No, I just want to make a suggestion around how we move forward in a way that might help us.
So that issue has been resolved. There was some adjustments to the system that we had to bring in a different level of contract support to get it done. So that heating issue was resolved.
Okay.
And what I will tell you is that we are in the process of winterizing our systems.
Okay.
So even though that was fixed, I just don't want to set a false expectation that when you start firing up systems going into another season and you switch over, things that are dormant can sometimes show its ugly head. But we have a contractor on site that's in the process right now to make sure that those things are taken care of for all the facilities.
So, question: what type of you have regular maintenance, and then you have what we call preventative maintenance.
Correct.
Preventative maintenance is maintenance that you would do prior to the season happening, so that you can find out those things. Is that what you guys doing right now?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
So we're going to shift on over to Director Zeilinger for your suggestion, and then we'll segue into DHS. So I'm trying to close this out by 6:30. Sound like a good plan?
I want to just acknowledge, I mean, what I've heard, it's so that, because that's also something for us to take back, and we might, because I think we could ask a lot of questions about a lot of different processes and timelines of why things get delayed when there are maintenance concerns, and they're important, and they're real, and they affect the families in the program, they affect you when you get called, they affect my team when they get called, and it's an issue. So while we've shared with you a number of process steps and additional tools we've put in place to track on them, I am clear, and I do hear from you that you receive information that you feel like you cannot trust because issues continue, because there will be a repeat of an issue like that, and that there needs to be more transparency. What I'm hearing from you is there's both, we haven't earned the trust that something's fixed when we say it's fixed, and that there needs to be more transparency around repairs and how they happen, and also that agencies are working together and there's some accountability as to how we answer for the conditions that people are in, because, as opposed to feeling like it gets lost in the gaps between the agency relationships and partners. I've heard that, and we will definitely bring that back for more discussion about what some additional solutions might be.
Okay. Can you address additionally what Ms. Woodland brought up earlier with respect to those things? Because a lot of these things are some things that people are making general requests to with regard to them staying on the property. The issue that I haven't heard addressed yet, in which Ms. Woodland did bring up, was the retaliation, and that comes from the contracting company. I believe that's your management companies down there. When they are dealing with some of the people and they're reporting these issues, the reason why they get tired of reporting them and start sending them to us is because you have them, when they come out there decide to talk to me even after hours because they're dealing with an issue and they getting tired of getting the same old answer from that person, they try to write them up, they try to get them up and send them, get them with so many demerits that get them put out of the place. And we've seen that happen, and they've done it in front of me, and it has definitely happened at the rollout building, in which 3 families have been threatened to be thrown out of there simply because they came out to meet with us to talk to us about One in which they didn't have no heat. The other was when the building caught on fire. And they weren't, and I had to get all of the information that I got with regard to the building catching on fire from the police, not from the police, but from the fire department and their report that they generated.
What time is it?
It is 6:10 right now.
6:10. I do have one more thing that is a great concern that I wanted to address.
6:20.
Yeah.
Is there a protocol that we can receive in writing on what the requirements is to receive services from Virginia Williams? Because when you contact the shelter hotline, Mr. Handerhan said that you don't have to verify that you're homeless, but they ask you to have at least 4 people to verify that you're homeless, or you're just disqualified from receiving services. And then if you have people that are couch surfing, or you have some people that want to keep that type of issue private and not let people know that they're homeless, they can't get any services. Another thing is that I feel like you guys need to recognize also that we do have a lot of younger parents now who are not quite at the adult age of 21. They might be 18. In DC, you're an adult at 21. But they may be 18 or 19, and their circumstances may be drug-addicted parents or wherever the case may be, and they have children.
Yeah.
So it's not easy for them to get their issues addressed. Now, I have opened up my house and have people come, the younger ones, I've had plenty of them come and live with me in my home, and then I work with them into getting into other programs and things like that. So I'm trying to understand what exactly is the protocol to receive the services for Virginia Williams, because people are constantly getting turned away. And then another thing on top of that is that when they go to Virginia Williams will contact a family member and say, if you let them come and stay with you,
We'll give you this.
we'll give you food vouchers, we'll pay your utility bills and things like that. The problem is they come in, they do that, they get that help, and then they put the people right back out again.
Yeah.
And then when they go back and report, hey, they took what you gave them, but they put me out. They said I had to go, and I had to go. They can't receive any more services.
Yep.
No, you want to take that one?
Can I?
Yeah, and I want to, that given that our role right now is to really listen and be thoughtful about how we're responding, and we can certainly.
But there was a question about
Yeah, but there
eligibility.
was a question about eligibility, and
Mm-hmm.
I think what we can do is we can absolutely share the eligibility criteria in Virginia Williams and how we think about it, and Noah can speak to it a little bit, but I want to also, but I think there's also a question underlying the question that is something that I want to also acknowledge, which is a lack of transparency around how decisions are made and how we make sure that we're helping people who need help, understand that some people are not going to feel like they want to or can say everything that's really going on, and how do we recognize them? There's an issue with how we recognize and balance that with also the criteria and the practice that we use and how we are doing our business. So I just think it's important to help for me to acknowledge that I understand, and I think I hear. I'm curious if what I'm hearing are sort of two things. I want to know what your criteria is, but also I want you to. I think it's. I'm also feel like. Do I hear you saying? I also want you to hear that it feels like it's inconsistently applied, and it feels like there are situations that are urgent that nobody can actually get. So there are people who cannot get the help that they need in the way that you're doing it now.
Right.
And I think, and so I did understand that was part of your question, but the one that's, what's your criteria? No can speak to what that looks like, and we're happy to provide that to you, but it's not going to satisfy the second part of your question, which does require more thoughtful response on our part.
And what is your timeline on getting that? Because right now we're in a pandemic, and so many people are going unhoused right now. And I've been with Jewel, where every time it go down, they say it's DHS. Jewel, they always put the finger back at you. So this is why we did show up at your house, because Virginia Williams said we're doing our part. This is their policies. We're only doing what we're told to do.
DHS, ma'am.
Huh?
So Virginia Williams is DHS. That is our staff.
Right.
DHS,
So yeah. So when is the priority? Because right now it's like today. I literally just told her I have a person that texted me just today, this morning, yesterday and today, with 5 kids that don't have nowhere to go. I told I can't hold this. I just said I can't hold this. I literally I told Jewel that the day. I said I can't do no more because it's burning us out, and it's not even our, definitely not my job. And if you all know Black Lives Matter DC, we have so much to do. I stay in my lane when it comes to housing, but it's to the point that the housing advocates are so overwhelmed that they're bringing housing issues for Black Lives Matter DC to try to solve. And then I have to like put more pressure on Jewel because Jewel hate telling me no. Right? And so so that's like an urgent request to see exactly how this policy is to work so they'll know how to maneuver and what they know if Virginia Williams is saying what's standard policy. Because the only thing they telling us is what, like how I was dealing with the other situation. I don't even know what they're telling me because it's nothing that I can read to say, Jewel, why are they making her have a second interview? I'm like, Jewel, they told her that, and Jewel said, I don't really know about a second interview. So stuff like that. But if it was a policy, I would know why it's a second interview.
Do you want it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in general, when someone applies for shelter at Virginia Williams, the law requires us to check three main things. One, are you a DC resident?
DC resident.
Two, are you a family? Because that's a family resource center. And three, are you experiencing homelessness? So those are the three main things that they check with the questions they ask. Those are the three main things they check. In doing so, our intent is to provide services to families while families stay in their communities. That's why we have the homelessness prevention program that provide resources to support families. But the intent is for the family not to stay there forever. Because you come and apply for service, our intent is if you have a safe place to stay without the need to go into shelter with your support system, we can provide that support to your support system. I'll come to you with your support system, and then let's work on a plan. That plan be having your own place, or that plan be going to school, or that plan be increasing your income. It could be many things. It depends on the family. But when we do that, there are a few things that we take into account. If it's a safety issue, then there's no way you should go back. If you're telling me that you have domestic violence at home, but I cannot call that same person and ask them to stay with you. It's just wrong morally and legally. If there are safety concerns that are related to substance abuse or anything of this sort that would compromise the safety of the family, then we defer into going into placing the family in shelter and then we're working with the family while they're in shelter. But like Dr. Laura said, each case is different and they are complicated. These are like the framework policies, but when we work with each family, the situation is different and we have to entertain each case individually because each family's situation is different. But from policy perspective, these are the highlights of policy.
Right, but I think more so what I really want to know is what are the eligibility requirements?
Right,
I mean, I hear you say that, but that's so roundabout. Like, what is the acceptable documentation to receive the help that you need? Because for an example, one of the young ladies I had living with me, she was 18 years old, had a 2-year-old child, couldn't go live with her mom. Mom put her out and everything. And she was required to provide a lease from mom that did not show her name on it. Well, mom wouldn't give her that. So then she was still left out. So I just wanted to know, like, what are the eligibility requirements? So if someone is not able to get a lease, then what are they able to get, or what else can they provide to show that they're homeless?
Yeah. So there are a few things that we see. Our intent is, let's just say, if you already applied for benefits, be it food stamp or TANF, then there's no way for me to ask you if you're a DC resident. That shows that you're a DC resident and I can check it from the system. But when it comes to homelessness, there are a few things that we have to do to verify if you have a safe place to stay or not. And one way to check is if you have a lease in your name, or one way to check is if you are in a DC Housing Authority voucher holder houses as a household member. So there are a few things that we do to check. One, we check our system to see if you have submitted previous documents to DHS when you apply for benefits. We also work with DCHA to see if the person is on DCHA voucher holders list. But another thing that we ask is during the intake, if you indicate that you have been living with your mom all your life, then we ask, is there a way that you can go back and stay there? Now that's when we go into deeper clarifying questions about, yes, I was in my mom's list, but I cannot go back now. So if you cannot go back now, if it's a safety issue, then we verify with other people by maybe calling friends and families. If it's not a safety issue and mom is saying, no, you can't stay here anymore, then we have to ask mom to see the reason why, if there is any way we can help, or just confirming that she cannot stay there anymore.
Would you guys accept a declaration of homelessness?
That's something that's in the making. It's part of, we are updating our homelessness HSRA, the Homeless Services Reform Act. We're now working on the guideline, the detailed guideline on what are acceptable documentations. And this is one of the feedback that we have received from advocates. If families can say, hey, my name is Noah, I cannot stay there, and
Are you familiar with Dallas Williams?
I can confirm that.
Dallas Williams, he I don't know if he still does it, but I remember he used to do like a declaration of homelessness for people.
That identification is part of your application for example, for a voucher. It's different than eligibility for homeless services. So I think that one of the things that we need to, that I'm hearing from you on that I think is challenging is the expectations that are on the homeless services system, which is what NOAA does, versus the larger housing needs that people have, which is the role of the housing authority. So homeless services is really set up to provide shelter, emergency shelter when people have no other safe place to go, and that's what we need to make sure that we are doing better at reaching people who don't have access to safety. And I'm here to hear you, Jules. I'm going to stop talking because I know you have something you want to say. And you probably
I appreciate it. And I want to circle back on
I
her
just-
situation because he never answered her question.
Yes, I'm going to come.
I just wanted to say, when you look at the single side, and I know right now we're talking about family homelessness, but when you look at the single side, the low barrier shelters, all they need to get into those shelters, sometimes they don't even need an ID. Sometimes they're not even asked for ID, and they can get a bed just like that. But when it comes to family homelessness, it's like I have seen people get turned away by Virginia Williams because they're missing one document. So why is there such a difference between the single side versus the family? It seems like you all put more scrutiny on the family side versus the singles.
The way the law is written, so the law is written for low barrier shelter. You don't even have to tell them your name. You could say, I'm Mickey Mouse and I need a bed tonight, and you would get a bed.
Wow.
But and you could say, and we have now during COVID with the travel restrictions for other places, you could say, I just came from Namager, Florida, and I need a bed tonight, and we're going to put you in quarantine because we can't put you to quarantine for 14 days before you came in the district if you came from a place that's a COVID hotspot. So that system, it's also you're staying in a room with, I'm not proud of the conditions in low barrier shelter. It's another thing we're working on, but it's also a very different setup. We have a law that says if you're a family, you get your own private room, and there are a lot of additional regulations, and there's also a different process for eligibility, and that's written into the law that governs how we do homeless services. So it is different, but I want to distinguish that we're here, and our job and our purpose is to help people access safety and as well as to exit homelessness. But what we are not resourced to do is to subsidize the affordable housing needs of the city. That is actually the mission and purpose of the housing agencies like the Housing Authority and DHCD. We partner with them to try to help the people who need it the most get access, but we don't, how many subsidized units does the Housing Authority manage between your
public housing.
Between public housing and vouchers.
So on the public housing, which includes some of the mixed finance like Wheeler Creek, we're about 8,000. And then on the voucher side, we're at about 15,000. So
they're in
and
a
that's one that's the housing authority. But like you mentioned, there are places like Congress Park and other buildings that have direct subsidies from HUD. So they're affordable, but they're not administered directly by DCHA.
Correct.
There's also programs that the Department of Housing and Community Development has, like inclusionary zoning, the affordable dwelling units, the rent controlled units, that are also part of the affordable housing kind of spectrum that are also administered by Department of Housing and Community Development. So there's a lots of different levels and layers of affordability. So like tax credit units, some of them might have some subsidy from us, funding from DHCD, funding from the Housing Finance Agency, because there's a lot of different ways that affordability is created or preserved. And so it really just depends on where we're talking about and what sources are available. So we're definitely, our mission is absolutely for affordability.
I wanted to get to this question before we ended the meeting. The Rolock building. You guys came to our ANC commission and you guys said that it was going to be short term for a certain part, and then it would turn into long term. What is the status of that? Because we're looking at the documentation, and we're way past that date.
I thought it was a separate shelter in
It's
Ward
supposed to
8
be a
for long term.
Short term is supposed to be Chesapeake
Oh,
Street.
okay, so okay.
Long term is supposed to be the Rolock building. What's happening with that?
So you're holding us to our words, huh?
Yes, of course. I'm holding you accountable. That's why that's what I'm here for.
So, it's been a year. So we intended to use that space as short-term family housing for 2 years. And then our plan is to convert it into permanent supportive housing after 2 years. And I just smiled looking at the director because we just talked about it last week. We're assessing our inventory throughout the system, and we're starting thinking of what would the transition plan look like. So we just started having that conversation in-house. So it's just still in the books. It's still in our plan and working.
I'm guessing that the couple of millions that y'all getting in the 100 millions that y'all getting. I read those budget books just like y'all do. So I'm counting money. And I'm also counting property. So I'm looking for y'all to start building up some more, because homelessness is starting to become a real big problem over in Ward 8. And so I'm going to need y'all to hold to y'all word when y'all say y'all going to do something, and Ward 8 residents turn around and look at me and said, hey, they came in front of us and told us this. It's up to you to now hold them to it.
With that said, it sounds like we have one more question. And then I want to just assure you that each agency has our next steps, and we will respond to follow up in the same chain through which we've been communicating.
But in the true spirit of what you just said, we haven't really touched on all of the issues, so we better TA on another date to come back out here and meet, because we only touched the surface right now. We're not finished with everything. So we'll accept your response, but we also want to meet again, because we're going to address that in response and address the issues that we haven't quite caught up with yet at this meeting.
We will look at response, and then potentially maybe we can meet virtually next time. What do you think about
That's
that?
great.
Instead of having to come back, if we determine that there needs to be,
or if I can find you a spot, we don't have to meet virtually.
Not WebEx.
But
WebEx has a lot of problems.
Let's get to the next steps.
Go ahead.
First.
Yeah. So I'm going back to what Robbie was saying about like the 18-year-old who's in the traumatizing house, right? So that's a situation, and like now, and like this is when I was just telling Jewel I don't want to deal with this, because then I got to come and deal with that, which I know is going to be an issue, because it's a mother and daughter fighting. She got children. The mother put her out, but she's on the mother lease. So therefore, you all don't give her housing unless the mother say, take me off the lease. And the mother don't want to take her off the lease, because if the mother take her off the lease, then that screws up her. The way that this system is set up is so traumatic and traumatizing to black families that's oppressed. So therefore, I'm at the situation like, yo, but if you're ready to do this, your mother ready to move, your mother voucher ready to go, you want me to go and tell them you need housing, and then y'all gonna screw the mother who ready to go because she can't live with her mother because they keep fighting. You see how that's so traumatic for oppressed black people? And so when I want y'all to start, when y'all start making rules and laws, y'all got to humanize people and humanize oppression. People are not where they want to be because they want to be. Some people, it's a system that's not built for black people. And when you say, well, let me find this family member, you still putting them in other traumatic situations. And then for not to be in the cold, they're gonna go wherever. And then you know what you sell them on? We're gonna give you some food stamps, and you put them in a traumatic situation by giving them food stamps instead of giving them housing. You gotta like think about that, right? That's what I wanted to say.
That's a point. That's a great point.
Great point.
All right, no, that is a really important, and I hear that, and it's absolutely not what we are intending. What we're intending is to make sure we have enough shelter space for people who don't have a place to go. Understanding that so many people need affordable housing, and we can't try to be the affordable housing provider and a home service provider and give home service as well. But there's clearly we need to be able to do better and re-traumatize people by not helping them with the thing that they're coming to us for help with. And so I do hear you. Jewel, you gave some, I really want to acknowledge that you came not only to show a lot of problems that you're seeing over and over again as patterns into where the system needs work to serve people better, but you also came with some really really good solutions, and I'm grateful for you thinking about what are some actions that would make it better. I took notes, but if you would be willing to even let us take a picture of what you wrote so you don't have to take the time to type it up. I know you're in school, or some easy way that we can make sure we fully captured it. You asked us to look at whether we could work with the housing authority, where we would have to pay them to do that, because it's, Amber gently pointed out, it's not in our agreement currently, if we wanted to do an inspection 30 to 45 days after somebody moves in, so that we could do a better job of knowing when there are really serious issues that we don't have visibility to right now because they're rampant in the program and we're missing them. I know that you asked us to really look, and we heard a lot about Virginia Williams and what the impact it has on families when they can't get the help that they need. And there needs to be a different kind of escalation process than the one that we have now. I know you know, and we put in the document we gave you what that is, and we do respond to it, in the immediate, but it's not serving what it needs to not have you having the weight of somebody's safety on you, and that's a gap, and it's where it's our jobs to do that, and it's not happening the way it should. I heard some recommendations around IEP and how we use our eligibility placement as a way of ensuring.
So I'm sorry for the way the video ended. I had been recording for a very long time, and unfortunately my phone had died. And I know that we were not able to get every single issue out. I know that there were a lot of other things still going on that we have not been able to touch on yet, but we will be having a second follow-up meeting with the director of DHS, DCHA, and DGS. The same people that were at the meeting today, they will be at the next follow-up meeting. If you have any suggestions or things that you think that we should raise that are important, make sure you reach out to me through social media, send me an email, always ajewel@gmail.com, or you can message me on Facebook, because I would love to hear back from you and hear your feedback. Thank you all so much for watching.